Problem definition. A severe thunderstorm in Henrico County, Virginia has caused all traffic lights in the county to be completely unavailable to the public. This issue has caused drivers to be troubled while driving and has led to multiple accidents. The outage problem needs to be fixed urgently to provide a safe environment for the county's residents. This outage has affected multiple facets of the county. For example, small businesses and tourism have taken a substantial toll due to the word about the outage that has plagued the county. Potential solutions. Using a uninterruptible power supply or battery backup system to provide electricity temporarily in case of an emergency in the context of the traffic lights losing power. This would involve the use of an alternate power source to the one that was being used, which has gone down. By increasing the number of power sources, you can improve the traffic system's fault tolerance to 2 or more points as opposed to just one single point. An implementation of an uninterruptible power supply would be a power source that only kicks in when the primary source is interrupted. This stops whatever system is connected to the UPS from going down. Though the use of the backup generators or perhaps a solar-powered battery to use in emergency situations, traffic control could be maintained efficiently for a longer time while the source of the problem is addressed. This method could potentially be costly to implement, but by keeping traffic and local infrastructure running smoothly, it could also help in getting the main power source's problem addressed that much quicker. The implementation of a UPS system, depending on how they choose to implement it, could also be a longer-term solution that could easily be used for potential incidents in the future as the system is already in place. Approach 2. Using local human resources such as officers to direct traffic in the absence of working traffic lights. Intersections are supposed to be treated as if everyone were all stop signs. However, while this method keeps people safe, it can also cause slow traffic dramatically. This is where traffic officers come into play. The source of the problem is addressed. Have intersections with malfunctioning traffic lights be treated as if they were at stop signs, because malfunction lights can cause even more accidents. Ignoring them and then instead treating them as a four-way intersection, providing constant that can be understood by everyone, making the intersection still usable until the lights can be fixed. This would have to be done by either adding signs to affected areas, stating what traffic behavior the unavailable light shouldn't be treated as, or issuing an update to the public, informing them that intersections can be treated as stop signs. How this update is issued does not matter as long as it reaches as many people as possible.
Tell me what. Okay. Alright, so stakeholder impacts. Now for each approach, the people who are going to be most impacted by our various different methods of fixing this issue are going to be the drivers. They have to deal with the stoplights in the first place, they're going to have to deal with whatever we do to fix them. However, the degree to which the drivers are involved changes depending on the individual solution. For example, the one that uses backup generators or alternative power sources is probably going to be the easiest for them. It's just turning the stoplights back on. But depending on how long it takes to install the generators, it could be an impatience thing. We want society to return to normal, so we don't want to stick around and wait for everything to get fixed. As for approach 2, with a more serious change occurring, we really have to work around, how much are they willing to put up with when it comes to construction, when it comes to really fixing this stuff? How many intersections are going to be down entirely before the drivers can actually return to normalcy? And for solution 3, if we make every intersection a four-way stop, this is probably the best option for the individual drivers, since four-way stops are pretty common, but it's still going to be a thing of, what are they going to do when they return to normalcy? Are they going to immediately assume intersections are four-way stops and they aren't, or is it going to be a clean shift back? Regardless, the people second most impacted are going to be city planners and designers. If you've got to shift the entire power system onto batteries and generators, you've got to put a lot of funds and effort towards that, so it's going to require a great deal of administrative oversight. Alternatively, if you're just putting a stamp on it that says all intersections are four-way stops now, you've got to figure out whether or not the city planners actually have authority to do that. Is that something for higher management, maybe? And finally, when it comes to the methods that revolve around actually fixing the electrical issues, you've got the electrical repairmen and the construction workers. They're going to have to dig up the power lines that actually connect these things, repair whatever damage was caused by the original thunderstorm, which is already pretty serious, it's completely shut down these intersections, and then they're going to have to deal with the fact that people still want to go through these intersections. So you're going to be blocking off a great deal of traffic, and you're going to be putting these people under a lot of pressure to finish it quickly. So yeah. Cool.
When streetlights in a county stop functioning, it's a crisis situation that calls for engineering expertise. However, with a lot of engineering problem solving, there's an ethical code that needs to be followed and certain things that need to be taken into consideration. The first concern that we have is always public health and safety. And since the power outage, there have been several accidents, thus making this issue a public safety risk. Engineers should take action to come up with a temporary solution until the streetlights are able to be fixed. Engineers in this situation have to issue public statements, and to remain ethical, all public statements should be objective, truthful, and honest in potential situations like this. Something else to consider is that this problem needs to be solved as soon as possible, which could raise other problems. Only engineers trained in this specific area and profession should be allowed to help fix the problem. Engineers must work diligently to get the problem fixed in a timely manner, but this doesn't mean rushing and potentially making mistakes that could exacerbate the issue. This is why coming up with a temporary solution would be a good idea. It would allow engineers time to work on solutions without the pressure of a full-on crisis to mitigate.
When solving the problem, there are 4 main criteria that we need to focus on to make sure that it's a good solution. One that we came up on was cost. A solution cannot be too expensive or too cheap. Another one is accessibility. How easy is that solution to implement and get going in a timely manner? Another criteria is quality. We got to make sure that the solution is decent and actually solves the problem that we have at hand. And effectiveness is how well the solution actually fixes the problem. So we found that solution 1, installing the UPS and BBS systems, would most likely be the most expensive, as you have to pay for construction and infrastructure changes. We found that solution 2 would be the cheapest, as it uses local manpower for traffic guards to direct people on the 4-way intersections, and that solution 3, aka just having the 4-way stops be assumed by the drivers, would be the cheapest, but that's only because you don't need to install anything at the site of the problem. For accessibility, we found solution 1 would take the most time and effort to implement, but once installed, it would make sure that the problem doesn't happen again because of the how the generators come back online whenever power goes out. Solution 2, addition of traffic guards is relatively seamless. However, you need to make sure that they can actually get to the spot of the incident by the time the traffic is starting to build up during the day. Because the third solution has no implementation of traffic guards or anything that needs to be installed, it is the most accessible, as it's just the drivers need to change the way they use these intersections. For quality, the UPS and BBS would have the highest quality for solutions. It would power the traffic lights, making them basically return back to normal. Traffic guards are second for quality, as they give a little bit of influence for the drivers to know when to go and when to not go. And interpreting the lights as a 4-way stop is probably the least quality, as some people aren't as refreshed on traffic laws as others. The first solution is also the most effective. It fixes the lights and makes sure that they'll stay on in case of another bad storm or whenever the power will go out. The second solution is pretty effective also, but traffic guards are not there 24/7, so some hours will have no guidance. And the third solution is the least effective also, due to, again, people's lack of traffic laws. And we think that the best solution is the one that's most effective at solving the problem at hand. Even if cost is important, it is worth going a little over on budget to make sure that the problem is fixed and will stay fixed.
When looking at all the solutions side by side, our group decided that solution 1 would probably be the most effective, because not only would it solve the light issue temporarily before the main power supply was replaced, but with the implementation of the UPS and BBS systems, we would be able to solve the problem with any following incidents that may happen in the future, and there would be no additional downtime that comes with the initial implementation in the future. Although it would be put in place, and during that time we could have the traffic lights set as if they were stop signs, and use traffic officers from approach 2 and 3 that we recommended. But overall, once it's in place, I think solution 1 would be the best implementation for the problem at hand.